Hey, this is Anthony Rose. We've got probably one of the most important West Coast swing videos today to show you guys. And this is something that we've talked about, like, why is no one talking about this stuff? We all mention anchors, we talk about the anchor step, we talk about all this stuff, but why is it so few people are actually explaining what it is? And that's what we're covering in this video, so stick around. Guys, if you're gonna dance West Coast swing, you're gonna have to know what an anchor is. I mean, it's one of those things, it's one of the core parts of the dance. Unfortunately, a lot of people just really don't understand what an anchor is. And so this video, I think for a lot of people, a lot of you guys watching, is gonna be one of those pivotal points that, oh my God, this makes so much more sense now. And it's really, really simple. Now, if you're brand new here at the channel, we post all of the country dances from West Coast swing, the two-step, country swing, waltz, polka, all that. But you're gonna notice this little button down here and it says subscribe. And if you click that button, then you become an ex-dancer, and then you'll know when all the awesome stuff happens here on the channel. So we're gonna dance a little West Coast swing, and then we'll show you everything you need to know about an anchor. All right, guys, so the first thing we've got to do is understand, I think before we get into like what an anchor is, it's where it is, all right? So for those of you who are new, it's important to understand where the anchor happens. A lot of you guys have danced, I mean, you already know this, okay? So an anchor happens at the end of every pattern, which is right here, right? So I'm sending her from one side to the next, and there's an anchor. So as we're just dancing these basics, the anchor is always the last thing we do before we get into the next thing, okay? So now, so we know where the anchor happens, now we have to talk about like what it is, all right? Not what's the footwork, but what is an anchor? You know, one of the biggest things that people get confused about when they start learning dance West Coast swing is that they get into this thing about like, what is the footwork, where do my feet go, all this stuff. Now, we did a video a while back, you can watch that right there, but it really talks about that in further detail, like footwork and all that kind of stuff. Probably be shocked at what you see actually in that video. Yeah. But first, we really want to talk about what an anchor is, not how to do it. Okay, because a lot of people get tied up on the idea they don't really understand what an anchor is. Now, if you've been dancing West Coast swing for a while, I promise you by the end of this is gonna be something that probably causes you to look at West Coast swing a lot differently, and it's gonna make things easier. If you're brand new, this is where you start, because from this point forward, your progression into West Coast swing is going to be a lot easier. Now, this is gonna be probably a little bit controversial, maybe for some people, but
what are you gonna say?
Anchor is essentially this. Right? So this is an anchor, right? We are stretched away from each other. Now, I could talk about an anchor step, which has this triple step in place and all that stuff. That is an anchor step, not necessarily an anchor. You can do an anchor step without doing an anchor, but you can do an anchor without doing an anchor step. Let me say that again. We're talking about the concept of what an anchor is, okay? And then we'll talk about why we do it. Now, if I'm in this position and Rose and I are just standing in front of each other, if we created some amount of leverage where we're leaning away from each other but we're not moving, that's an anchor. That's all it is. Notice I haven't talked about what the feet are doing at all. So now if we do those basics that we did a minute ago and we're just doing like side passes or whatever we're doing, at the end of every pattern, we have to be stable and we have to create some stretch. It's don't go anywhere, but create some leverage, kind of like you're stretching a rubber band. That is what an anchor is. Now, one good way or easy way in the way that we teach beginners to dance an anchor is through an anchor step. But an anchor step by itself is not an anchor. So what I mean by an anchor step is if she comes over here and we do this left side pass and we get over here, we do this triple in place. Okay, that's an anchor step, but it's not an anchor until that anchor step creates some amount of stretch. So we're not moving, we're not drifting all over the place, we're not going anywhere, we're standing, we're staying right there like we threw an anchor over a boat and it basically stays there, but it's actually weighing us down. Yep. So now we have to talk about why that's important and how this ties into the dance. The reason this is important, I'm just gonna give you a demonstration here. If Rose and I were standing here and we have weight leaning away from each other, right? So we've got this weight leaning away from each other. If I take a step back, she's connected to that weight and she can then react and follow the lead I'm giving her. If we don't have this stretch, if our arms are just hanging here loose and I move back, nothing happens until there is weight, okay? So there's gotta be this, it comes from in order to come to. Again, we use this analogy of like a rubber band. If I take a rubber band, pull a little bit, it's pretty light. The more I pull it, the tighter it gets. But if I stretch that rubber band and I get some weight and I release it, then the reaction is to go in that direction. The reason she comes forward at the beginning of every pattern, which is something she's going to do, is come towards me, is the way that she knows to do that is because we have this elasticity or this stretch at the end of every pattern. So if we did like a basic whip or something like that and we go 1, 2, 3 and 4, 5, 6, 7, and we have to stretch at the end of that pattern, because then when I move, she can react or respond to that stretch or that lead that I've given her. Okay, now that we know what an anchor is essentially don't move, stay there, create leverage. Now there's a million different ways that you can do that.
And that's where you have a lot of fun and get creative with it.
Guys, we love doing these videos for you guys, and we hope that they're helpful, and we put everything that we can in this video format, but I tell you what's even better than that is if we were with you guys in person, in front of you,
Ask
being
all
able
your
to teach you
questions.
guys. So I don't know if you guys heard this or not, but the two-step tour is coming up. We still have spots in all of the locations coming up. We're from one side of the country to the next. A lot of these locations are still in pre-sale, which means they're 50% off right now. Click that link right now and see where we're gonna be at, and hope to see you guys in person. If you watch like some of the top pros and they're dancing and whatever, if you're new and you watch them, it's like, man, their basics don't look anything like mine. They're doing all this stuff with their feet and everything. They're still doing the dance the same as you're probably just doing a lot better probably than you are if you're a beginner, but it doesn't really matter what your feet do, okay? Now, I've done this in other videos, but I'll just dance a couple basics real quick, and I'm gonna go ahead and tell you the secret. I'm gonna dance on the wrong foot the whole time, so it doesn't matter what your feet do. So instead of starting with my left, I'll go right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left. I'm still creating that anchor, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left. So essentially, I'm on the wrong foot all the time. So again, footwork doesn't matter. What does matter at the end of every pattern is that elasticity and stretch.
And I think that this really stems into a different conversation where we get students and we see people everywhere. They feel very robotic, very square. This is really introducing the principle of connection, and that's really what West Coast Swing is about. If you get your connection right, you have the correct stretch, that's when you can really start having fun with it and really focusing more on the dance and the styling and the music.
And you're focused on your partner.
Yes,
I mean, because without
for
that
sure.
elasticity, there's no connection. Okay. Now, if I did the same thing, again, we're talking about footwork and anchor steps and all that stuff. If I just walked and I just did walk, 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 and I'm just walking the whole time, I'm still able to dance West Coast Swing just the same, as long as I'm creating elasticity. Now, we talked about what an anchor is, okay? We gotta talk about the footwork. We teach beginners, we teach them to do anchor steps in the beginning because it gives them a foundation. They don't have to like, oh, what, I'm just supposed to make something up.
Yeah.
We give them a foundation, but at some point it's gotta expand into this, all right? We have to have that stretch in order to let her know when it's time to start the next thing, when the beginning of every pattern starts coming towards me. Again, because we talked about this stretch happening here. How does she know to come forward? Is it because I move back, or is it because I start with my left foot? Again, footwork doesn't matter. What happens is a change, write this down, it is a change in the amount or the degree or the amplification of stretch, suddenly, all right? It's not a certain amount of me pulling against her. It's not a specific amount. It's when we have stretch, because we can stretch a lot, but when I suddenly shift it and there's an increase, that's when she knows to come forward, okay? I know a lot of this is probably confusing, but what I want you guys to know is that an anchor is not a step. It's not something you do with your feet. We literally could do an anchor step, or an anchor, I'm sorry. We can do an anchor in all kinds of footwork. So if I went 1, 2, 3, and 4, and I ended up here in this cross foot, right? At this point, I still have stretch. I'm still doing an anchor, even though my feet are not doing an anchor step. So I can lead her through, I can do all kinds of things. From here, I literally can just stand here with my feet apart and still create a stretch. So it's not the footwork that matters. We create this elasticity, we create this stretch at the end of every single pattern so that then we can initiate the next one, right?
Yes.
An anchor step is
So
just
important.
one of many ways to do this. So guys, I hope this concept makes sense to you guys. If it doesn't, if you guys don't understand, or if you have questions, leave comments down below, because we read all that stuff. We want your questions, because if there's something we're not being clear on, we want to try our best to make it clear.
And add to the conversation. Yes, we're here to help each other.
We appreciate you guys being here, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Guys, if you haven't checked it out already, check out xdance.com. You can get a free trial there. It's a little bit different than these videos because it's more interactive, or you can watch another video here on YouTube. That one's pretty good too.